Who would like to go first? Which side? That side? So here's what's going to happen. We have 6 minutes. We have 6 minutes to use between their opening and closing. And they can use it however they want. So the opening, 6 minutes. Also, if their time does elapse, I will have to do that. So we'll go over time. Since you guys chose to be first on the first topic, they will go first, as it's fair. And I'm going to give it over to you.
You have 6 minutes. Good afternoon, all, and thank you very much for attending today. We're taking a look at issues which affect everybody in this room today and for generations to come. It's easy to take a stance that's uninformed. However, when you choose a course for your future, you should educate yourself on the topics and then choose. The topics we're discussing today, they're not all on the forefront of the presidential platform, but they are nonetheless important. We may not be a perfect country, but with the Republicans in charge, we will be by far better than most. We have a great deal to accomplish in the future, and by choosing the best programs, regardless of the politics, we will achieve greatness in America. Whether you agree or disagree with the portions or all of the stands today, thank you for taking the time to care about your future and getting informed.
Thank the JSA again for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. While I'm excited to debate a variety of topics and issues, explaining why I believe and know that conservative principles and values give everyone in this room and our nation the greatest opportunity for success, I mainly want to express, especially to the students in the room, that I believe in each of you. I believe that each of you, no matter the circumstances that you have been born into, can achieve your life goals. I see a tremendous amount of talent in the room, and I wholeheartedly reject the victimization culture that the left generates and then acts surprised when students and members of society do not rise up. It's because we've told them they are victims. The liberal left discourages the most vulnerable. The liberal left tells our students they will never create generational wealth for their families and demonizes the successful and wealthy. Liberalism requires social injustice. At least they need you to believe there is social injustice. Liberals want you to look in anger and disgust at a successful CEO who has worked her tail off to achieve her lifelong goals. Liberals will paint a picture of a young lady born to wealthy white parents, attending private school, having a rich grandpa that pays for her college, getting the high-ranking business position because her shady uncle gave her the job, and rising to CEO because she had dirt on members of the board of directors. In reality, this successful CEO could do all of what she's done because this is America. She could have been born to a single mother working 2 jobs to provide for a daughter, who attends a rundown public school, but because of great teachers and an excellent work ethic, she achieves a high GPA, a high ACT score, and receives a full-ride scholarship to the local university. After college, she lands a full-time position, performing less than glamorous work, but sticks with it. She moves up in the company, and because of late nights working in the office and because of the passion she demonstrates for her job, she is hired as CEO. I urge everyone in this room to reject the victimization culture spewed by the left. Reject the deterioration of capitalism and free market principles. Take control of your own life. Stop depending on the government to provide you with self-worth. Navigate the ups and downs of life that life throws at you. And most importantly, pursue your passion. I look forward to the spirited debate.
The speakers use 3 minutes and 34 seconds. At their opening, they will have 2 minutes and 26 seconds on the closing. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, friends and colleagues. I would like to extend my sincerest thanks to JSA for inviting me to partake in this event today. As the goal of this debate is to present divergent perspectives, I want to begin by sharing with you why I Politics aside, I am at my core a humanitarian. My ideals, beliefs, and values all stem from my desire to live in a world that allows us to become more fully human, a world in which it is easier to love. I want to do my small part to create a world in which everyone's humanity is not only recognized, but valued. A world where people work together to create a brighter tomorrow. A world where people do not have to live in fear and alienation simply because of who they are and the privileges they lack. And by the way, when I say people, I mean actual people, not corporations. These values and ideals are liberal values and ideals. The liberal movement is one of progress and hope for the future. The conservative movement seeks to keep our society stagnant. The liberal movement values the beauty and potential of human life. The conservative movement values wealth and power. The liberal movement is a movement for humanity, and I am proud to call myself a liberal. I acknowledge that terms such as liberal and conservative are complex, nuanced, and ever-shifting. I will not argue that every liberal goal is right and every conservative goal is wrong. Part of what makes me a liberal is the fact that I value dissenting opinion. I value a collaborative dialogue, as discussion accomplishes so much more than echo chambers. Liberal and conservative are two sides of a coin that must work together to maintain balance. Unfortunately, the conservative martyr complex has shifted the balance to create a culture that refuses to believe in science and uses religious freedom as an excuse to marginalize anyone who is different. I am a liberal because I believe the dialogue must be reopened and the balance restored. It was my greatest desire to come before you today and share my passion for the struggle for social justice. I wanted to speak with you about the importance of protecting the rights for not just all Americans, but all humans. I wanted to discuss with my colleagues on the other side of this stage human rights issues at the forefront of the political and social arena. Unfortunately, my request to discuss these very human issues was vetoed in favor of discussing guns and climate change, both corporate interests. And so, because I would not have the opportunity to speak on these topics at length, I will simply borrow a page from Attorney General Loretta Lynch. To the women who I have the privilege to work with and for every day, to my lesbian, gay, bisexual, and queer students and colleagues, to my students and colleagues who are transgender, genderqueer, and gender nonconforming, to my students and colleagues of color, to my students and colleagues who do not benefit from the privileges afforded by wealth, to all of my students and colleagues who fall outside of the conservative definition of real Americans, I see you. I stand with you, because these are liberal values.
The speaker used 3 minutes and 30 seconds. They will have 2 minutes and 47 seconds in the closing speech. Since the Republicans went first for the opening speech, we will now do the Democrats in first topic. First topic is the 2016 presidential election. Will you support the nominee of your party for president of the United States? And what advice do you have for evaluating principles or language?
I am, right now, in the primaries, 100% a supporter of Bernie Sanders. I intend to vote for him in the primaries next week. However, if he does not win and the numbers are not looking good, I will most certainly support Hillary Clinton. She has a wealth of experience and knowledge and all of the qualifications that are needed for a strong president. Is she a perfect candidate? No, but neither is Bernie Sanders. However, I would argue that they are both much closer to that bar of perfection than is Donald Trump. We need a president who is a humanitarian, someone who believes in people and not corporations. We need someone who is not a bigot, a misogynist, or a xenophobe. We need someone who will protect the rights of our people, no matter their color, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. We need someone who will rule for the people and not for corporate interests. Donald Trump is a terrifying sight on the horizon, and I hope I never have to live to see a United States that is run by Mr. Trump.
I am a Hillary Clinton supporter, and it baffles me that this is the election year when competence has somehow become a bad word. Hillary Clinton has been a Secretary of State that has presided over important pieces of diplomacy. She has been a Senator of the United States that served the state of New York with distinction. She has the experience of having been the First Lady in the White House with Bill Clinton, which was a successful presidency, and it just seems quite interesting that in this year that has become somehow bad. That to be competent at one's job is not regarded as something that we should look for, and instead we should look to a candidate who speaks his mind no matter how ridiculous those thoughts are.
Republicans, same question.
I also support our party agenda right now. America has been a proud country. However, over the last 8 years, we've seen a lot of issues that has not allowed our country to go, or has allowed our country to grow complacent. Other world leaders see America as a weak example. We need a leader for America, and I believe Trump can be that leader. The programs he proposes, no matter how brassy they are, they're the types of things that we need to make America walk tall again. Hillary Clinton, if you enjoy getting emails that exposes some of our most precious secrets, who's going to pay all those bills that he's promising all of his American children that they're going to get free education?
Vote for Donald Trump this fall. Just a few months ago when I debated Mr. Clark, I made the statement that Donald Trump would absolutely be my last choice of all the Republicans running in the primary, and here we are. That was true then, and it's still true today to some extent, but my decision to support Donald Trump comes down to three things. Number one, I'm going to vote. Number two, I want my vote to count, meaning that I will not vote for someone who has no chance of winning even one state. And number three, I would never vote for Hillary Clinton, a radical liberal being investigated by the FBI, hardly a partisan organization. While there are things about Mr. Trump's personality and even some policy issues that I disagree with, crooked Hillary will embrace more of the same. More big government, more corruption, more Obamacare, more illegal immigration, more restrictions on gun ownership, more mandated standardized testing that you performed this morning, more debt to be placed on your shoulders, less opportunity, less freedom, and less safety. Republicans, independents, and I believe common sense Democrats will rally around Mr. Trump, if for no other reason than they can't imagine Hillary Clinton, an individual who knowingly lied to the family members of dead soldiers following the Benghazi attacks, to become president. To those Republicans who say they will never vote for Trump, I don't believe them. As the election approaches, they will realize the danger a Hillary Clinton presidency poses to our nation, and they will rally around Mr. Trump. Just today, Speaker Ryan met with Mr. Trump, and I believe those discussions will lead to an endorsement, the start of a wave that will bring more establishment Republicans on board and propel Donald Trump to victory this fall.
Now it's time for questions from the audience. We're taking two questions. First, we'll start with the Democrats. Anybody have any questions from the Democrats about this issue?
I'll start off. I have a question for Mr. Clark and Mr. Harris. Recently, in the past 3 months, Hillary Clinton has been asked been able to name one great accomplishment. Everyone else passed the football too. What do you think her greatest accomplishment has been in 30 years of politics?
We have 1 minute to answer that question.
Well, I think first off, to characterize her 30 years in politics would be to characterize that also as her time as First Lady, which is a non-political position. But I think that among her time as Secretary of State, I would point to opening the talks with Iran to reduce the threat of nuclear proliferation in the Middle East as not only a significant achievement, but one that opens things up to a lifetime and a generation of peace or more safety at least.
We're taking a question for the Republicans. We have a question for the Republicans now. Right there.
You mentioned that, first of all, I wonder why you think that's a problem. You mentioned Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton was the first lady of Bill Clinton who balanced the vote. And she actually has a plan how to do that, which is a horrible idea. But that's another discussion. So Donald Trump, his tax plan will reduce revenues by trillions over decades, leading to massive budget deficits. Now, that's not really a bad thing right now, at least, since the economy is not running hot. We're in a slump right now. It's mean to say. But I guess the question is, if you worry about the debt, why would you choose Trump?
We have 1 minute.
So the debt is just a small piece of why, of why I would support, why I would not support Hillary Clinton. I do understand that Donald Trump's tax policy would increase the debt over a hopefully small period of time. I'm not for increasing the debt, clearly. I'm not. I believe that we should pay, we should pay as we go, and that we should live within our means. But there are so many other reasons to not support Hillary Clinton. That one small reason about maybe her plan balances the debt, that's just a small piece.
And you have to look at why our debt has risen so much. The last 8 years have not been run right by Republicans.
We think we have 1 more question for the Democrats. If there are any questions. Anybody? Oh.
You just mentioned that over the past few years that there's Republicans not in office, but also military spending is over half of our budget, and that was the reason why we're looking at our budget. So, would you advocate cutting this program and helping with cut down costs, or would you try to live with that?
Yeah, the role of the federal government is to ensure that those troops have the supplies and the equipment they need. The tools of the trade are not cheap anymore. You can drop 1 aircraft load of arms and ammunition, and there goes $1 million. So to give our troops every advantage that they need, it's going to cost money to do that. There are other ways I think that they probably could have funded it, but I'm not the one in charge. So we have to support our troops no matter what, whether we agree with the way that we're doing it now, the way that it's been done in the past. Ultimately, those guys are the ones laying their life on the line, and we have to support them no matter what it costs. We put them there.
Okay, are there any more questions for the Democrats? Not for Republicans. Democrats. Okay, well,
by any sort of government. How is that going, where are you going to find any sort of initiative for people to create and keep innovating if they know that they're going to be able to develop from their innovation straight away?
Well, first off, I would argue with the notion that Bernie Sanders has ever proposed any kind of stripping of power away from an American corporate CEO. That's just not part of his game plan. It's not part of anybody's proposal. It's not anything a Democratic Party representative has proposed, that American businesses have things taken away. You're confusing Fox News for actual news. You're confusing the notion that because some people say that socialists take that happened in other countries, but Bernie Sanders has never proposed that, has never once said that. No, I would not support that, and I'm pretty sure Mr. Harris would not support that either. Nobody is calling for any initiative to be stripped, but the fact that you have to, you are more likely to succeed in American business today if you inherit money from mom and dad than if you have to start your own business.
Time's elapsed. Now we'll move to closing speeches on this issue. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Audience members first. Is there any? We have 2 audience members for each side, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 1 minute speaking. Who wants to speak on the side of the Democrats? Anybody? Okay. David, I see you. Who wants to speak on the side of the Republicans? I'm free. Yes. Okay, so we got our 7.
Come on, guys, come on.
Okay, since the Democrats spoke last, we'll start with the Republicans. We have 1 minute to speak on these issues in presidential election.
I feel like there's a lot of confusion going on with choosing Donald Trump as a political candidate. It's not so much that people want him for his political savvy as opposed to Hillary Clinton, but they feel it's not like he struck a gold mine when he said he wants to build a wall between Mexico and the United States. It's not like half of the country wants that. It's just that they see in Donald Trump a different way of doing politics, and they feel like a system has been either screwing them over or wronging them in some way, and they want that change as opposed to what Hillary Clinton offers. Thank you.
So I'm going to bring an interesting perspective. I'm focused on economics right now. And either way, we're in a lot of trouble because none of the candidates understand what's happening. Most economists recognize that we're lacking something called aggregate demand, which is the demand for goods and services. Ever since the recession, people have been deleveraging, paying off their debts. Asset prices have fallen after the inflated in the housing market. So now the only way that people are going to be able to get more money is from banks, bank loans. The only other source other than that is when the government runs a deficit. Both candidates, unfortunately, believe that deficits are a better thing. If you look at Europe, they've been pushing fiscal austerity, reducing their spending, double-digit unemployment rates, GDP growth less than 1%. And then, I mean, it's...
That's how the Republicans that have 1 minute.
I'm sure a lot of guys who haven't been in here are confused to see up here because I used to be in the world, with the obvious example. Honestly, I am pretty disappointed with the way this party's going right now. Just because right now we're moving toward an area where people are going to assume that we're all xenophobes, homophobes, or we don't like immigrants, when really that's not the case at all. We're just thinking about what's best for our country. And lately, with everything that's going on around the world, especially with Brussels and Paris, that's gotten especially bad.
Brown said, my last choice came to this. But I would not vote for Hillary Clinton, so that's probably a vote.
Your time is elapsed. Okay, 1 minute, please.
I want to preface this by saying, when you go out to vote, don't vote for a Democrat because you're a Democrat, or vote for a Republican because you're a Republican. Vote for who you think is going to be the best leader. Personally, if Casey was still in the race, I probably would have voted for him, even though I'm a Democrat. However, the candidates that there are, I have to say that Hillary Clinton is probably the most, I would say, qualified, since she has one of the main things this whole entire generation is foreign policy. And Donald Trump, we can already see, is not going to have good foreign policy at all. And Bernie Sanders doesn't have much of a track record to go off of. So that's the main reason I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. Not to mention, everyone says that she lies. We do fact checking. She tells us just as much truth as any of the other politicians, which may not be saying much, but we can't just call her a liar because she's just lied as much as anyone else, which is pretty horrible, but politics.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next issue, immigration. Republicans, you have 3 minutes. Here's a question. Donald Trump has brought the issue of immigration to the forefront of the 2016 presidential election by suggesting that a law should be built on the border of Mexico. Is illegal immigration from Mexico significant threat to domestic security? Discuss your views and address the issue of Mexico. For 3 minutes.
The immigration debate in this country is one of the debates that frustrates me more than any other because it's a very, in my opinion, it's a problem that can easily be solved. But because of political posturing on both sides, nothing constructive ever happens. Liberals see an opportunity for complete amnesty where they would potentially gain millions of voters. And some Republicans are beholden to corporations that need cheap immigrant labor and might have trouble finding employees. Both sides talk a lot, but nothing gets done. We've discussed immigration reform for 30 years or more, and nothing ever improves. My solution is a conservative one that does not tear families apart and deals with this problem. The number one priority of any immigration reform measure is border security. So to your question about the wall, if the wall will work, then build a wall. If it's to put more law enforcement on the border, then put them there. If it's to enhance drone or electronic surveillance, then do it. Number 2, expand the work visa program and hold employers accountable. The worst part about our immigration system is that so many of these individuals live in the shadows. We do not know where many of these individuals live or what they do. If an illegal immigrant wishes to be employed, they must obtain these documents. The only way to hold them accountable is to penalize and place large fines on their employers. Number 3, in order to obtain legal citizenship status, they must learn English, pass simple U.S. constitutional law exams, and pass driving tests. They are also at the end of the line of people wishing to come here legally. Their position in line may never come up if our economy demands more highly qualified individuals wishing to come here legally. Individuals here illegally can stay, living on the guarantee of the work visa.
Our country has always been known as a melting pot. We've also always put numbers or limits to how many people we allow in from other countries. In the mid-1800s, Irish and Germans were limited. The problem was those who arrived in this country without skills are putting a drain on the system. In 2010, 4 states in the Southwest spent $45 billion to cover health care costs for illegal aliens coming across the border. We've mandated we're going to take care of them. We continue to strangle our own economy with laws preventing most have never paid into our Social Security system, however, receive benefits. Today, we do not see English first mentality.
Speaker's time has elapsed. Okay, Republicans have spoken. Democrats, you have 3 minutes.
I find it particularly interesting that my opponents use the term melting pot. This seems a pretty applicable term for the conservative point of view because they believe that when you enter this country, you must become just like everyone else in this country. This country is not a melting pot, and our diversity is not something to be hidden or masked. It is to be embraced. The things that are different about us are the things that are the best things about us. I would argue that does there need to be reform in terms of immigration law? Certainly. But I don't think it is in the direction of limiting people to enter this country. I don't believe it is in the way of deporting hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of undocumented workers who are here in America doing jobs that Americans will not do. Illegal immigrants work for very little pay. According to one study in 2002, about $4.50 an hour. So I'm assuming that that's probably a little bit higher now, but not a whole lot. That's still a little bit. Another study by UCLA's North American Immigration and Development Center estimated that undocumented immigrants contribute at least $300 billion per year to the U.S. gross domestic profit. I don't think this is anything insignificant. These workers are here. Those who cross the border illegally do so at extreme risk to their own lives. You were talking about days walking through a desert with no map, with no direction. And if they can make it here, I think they've earned the right to live and work here more than someone who was simply born here.
As our colleagues across the stage know, that for far too long, American immigration policy has often been dictated by xenophobia. Germans and Irish were limited, yes, when they came, but because German and Irish were feared at the time. And it's time for immigration law to stop being based on xenophobia and be based on a humanitarian approach that welcomes people to this country to become part of our diverse landscape.
Now I'll open up for questions. Do we have any questions from the Republicans? No? Okay. Do we have any questions from the Democrats?
How does being across the desert hurt the right to experiences?
You have 1 minute.
They have left their homes and their families to come work hard for a living, to live in a land that offers opportunities. They have earned the right to come here. I'm not saying that they should be given a free pass, but there should be an easier way to citizenship. I think a work visa program is an excellent idea. As long as that paperwork and the forms and the process to achieve it is simple enough to be done by people with limited education. We do not say that anyone with a poor education or anyone who does not speak proper English is not allowed to be an American. I think that it's important that we allow pathways for these immigrants to achieve citizenship, to achieve the ability to become an American. And that is what makes America great, is the ability to come and to become a part of this nation.
Okay, we'll go on to speakers. Are there any speakers who can speak on the side of the Republicans? 1 minute. Anybody? What, the Republicans? Yes. Okay, no Democrats. Teachers can participate too, if they like to. Yeah. Any Republicans? Teachers can come up too. Come back.
Just to touch on reentering Diana, I know that, I would welcome immigrants to this country the way I see it. We need to do it legally. say we have someone who just hops up the border and come over here and then we have a crime. You know, if we don't background check them, we're risking that happening. So that's the way it has to be. We need better background checks. And not just for Mexicans and Muslims, but for anybody.
First of all, I'd like to mention that I am a moderate, but as a moderate, I do see a problem here. I recently saw something on a TV show called The Newsroom where it made a statement saying that the Americans use more money in defense than the next 26 countries in the world, which most of them are our allies. And I see a problem because the Republican side is talking about increasing border control, making better equipment, using equipment that keeps check more efficiently and making more background checks. What I'm wondering is where are they going to pull the money from if they have defense payments locked down on lock? They seem to want to hold on to these defense funds pretty tightly, so I'm wondering where are they going to pull the money out to increase border control? That's just a question I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question for the immigration topic. And we'll start out with Republicans. 31 governors have refused to accept Syrian refugees in their states. These people are escaping ISIS in the war in Syria. However, there are vast fears that some of these refugees are ISIS insurgents. Do you feel that this influx of refugees, particularly in Europe, will have a stabilizing effects?
I think you can sum that up pretty easy. Paris, France, and Brussels. I mean, they've allowed Syrian refugees in there without properly vetting them, and they've let in the people that aim to do them harm when all they're trying to do is help them. I don't think anybody in the Republican Party is saying that we should not let immigrants into the United States. This country is based on immigrants. What we're saying is we need to know who's coming into our country. We don't want to let people into our country that aim to do us harm. That's just insane.
Well, Mr. Schwartz, I believe your candidate says we don't want Muslim immigrants, so that's kind of the answer to your question right there. Is there a threat? Of course there's a threat. Can you ever achieve complete safety other than saying no one comes in? No, absolutely not. But it was interesting last night, I was listening to a radio report, and it was talking to two people in Great Britain who are now in their 90s, who left Nazi Germany prior to World War II in a deportation or in a saving of Jewish children. Both of these people are now in their 90s. Their parents, their brothers and sisters, everyone else in the family died in Nazi Germany. And their perspective was interesting, that they were ashamed of the British government's refusal to take in people from Syria today. We faced these issues before. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. In 9/11, Saudi Arabians here on tourist visas perpetrated 9/11. They went through all the checks and it still happened. Part of being a free nation and part of being a free world is risky, and we just have to accept those risks. But I would much rather take that risk than tell the whole people, no, sorry, we're closing the door because one of you might be bad.
Global warming in the economy. Discuss your views on public policy for obtaining oil and natural resources. Do the goals of energy independence and jobs created by these policies outweigh the possible cost of the environment? 3 minutes.
The economy, when it comes to energy, is one where we are in a state of change. We stand on the precipice where we have been an oil-based nation, we have been an oil-based energy, we've been an oil-based economy, and we need to move beyond that. More and more, as science works and as industry works, new things become available to us. New technologies become available to us. And we have the option, we have the choice of saying, let's stay where we are, or let's move forward. This is particularly vital to the state of Kentucky. Coal has been a major part of our economy for a very long time. But the viability of coal as an industry in this state is dying. Fewer and fewer miners are at work. Fewer and fewer people are able to make their living from it, although there are still big corporate profits. It's time for the state of Kentucky, it's time for the United States of America to move beyond oil. If we want energy independence, we cannot depend on shooting water into the ground so that natural gas comes up, but also pollutes the groundwater. We cannot depend on the technologies that have polluted our environment for the last 100 years. It's time to move beyond that. Will there be a transition period? Obviously. Just as there was a transition period in every other new technology in America. But to base our actions on what worked 50 years ago or 75 years ago makes absolutely no sense in America today.
I agree with everything that Mr. Clark has said. I think the path forward is not through the ancient fossil fuels, but through new renewable resources. Things like electric cars are absolutely vital to getting away from our oil dependency, and the production and availability of electric cars has been incredibly stifled by policies supported by the oil industry. Things like wind power and solar power are incredibly crucial. When the biggest complaint about installing a wind farm is that it might destroy my view of the mountains, that is a ridiculous claim. At some point, we need to sacrifice the aesthetics of our backyard for a cleaner and healthier environment. Coal is massive in Kentucky, and our asthma numbers and the money that we spend on health for the poor who are working in the mines can tell you that.
Public, you have 3 minutes to speak on this.
So Mr. Clark mentioned that there's a lot of coal miners out of business, and if Hillary Clinton gets her way, she said it herself, she'll be sure to put a lot more coal miners and coal companies out of business. So as a conservative, I'm obviously a conservationist. Unlike what Mr. Clark and Mr. Henry would have you to believe, I do not want dirty air. I do not want dirty water. And I do believe in research in renewable sources. However, I do not think that we should pursue policies that wreck or weaken our energy economy here at home, especially our coal industry in Kentucky. It's important for everyone to remember that the quick gas at a rate of 10 years worth of human activity. We had an ice age, and the Earth came out of that ice age without the activity of humans.
You finished? Okay. Well, we'll take questions from the audience in the meantime. Are there any questions for the Democrats or the Republicans at all?
So, Mr. Brown, do you really not believe in global warming?
I believe that global climates have cycled since the Earth became a thing. We see it in the fossil record. We see it in the strata of rock layers. We had an ice age. You would agree with that. We came out of that ice age. Climates change. Where we sit today used to be a giant ocean. Climates and ecosystems change over time. Could I be convinced? Sure, I could be, but at this point I'm not, and I'm surely not willing to raise energy prices on all of your all's back to pay for something that may not even exist. And furthermore, you'll never convince me that China and India will change their ways.
Sophie was educating me earlier today on the notion of factory farms and the pollution that arises from those. And your point is very well taken. There are many sources of pollution, all of them, or many of them, man-made. Nobel laureate Peter Doherty commented at a press conference in London right after the declaration that was referred to by Mr. Brown. And he said this: all scientists are comfortable with skepticism, but the difference between skepticism and denial is that the skeptic engages. If you're a skeptic, you talk to other researchers, you look at the data. If you're in denial, you simply reject everything that's being published. Much of the discussion on climate change off of the Republican side is based in denial. You said you look for facts. Take a look at the facts that the global chemicals that began with the Industrial Revolution skyrocketed.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions for the Democrats or Republicans? Yes.
Mr. Harris, you mentioned earlier that people need to start sacrificing their backyard view over wind farms and solar farms. Why should I sacrifice the beautiful nature in my backyard so that you can potentially save trees and drive up prices on energy with the high price of these renewable energy sources?
My claim that you need to sacrifice your views for opportunities for renewable resources comes from the fact that if you do not find alternatives to fossil fuels, you're not going to have a view, your children won't have a view, your grandchildren won't have a view. We are on a path towards destruction. I'm not saying that that's coming in the next 5 years, but the numbers show that we are headed towards significant climate change that will destroy nations. It will destroy borders, it will destroy security. I think that having a pole, in my view, off in the distance is worth potentially extending the human life for a couple extra centuries. I'm not saying that the individual needs to foot the brunt of this bill, but it is our responsibility to come together to find viable solutions. And if we can't try that, then so
Round of applause. We'll take one last question from the Republicans before we move on to student speeches. Anyone else?
Another problem that's coming up with the increased amount of human output of carbon dioxide in the air is ocean acidification, which basically increases the normal amount of CO2 that's like present in the ocean, and it destroys the shells off of smaller organisms, which is leading up to messing up food webs and ecosystems. Do you think any action should be taken to stop that?
As an educated biology student, like I know that you are, you know that, ecosystems change. Extinction has been a way of life, or the way that it has occurred over the course of the entire Earth's history, right? So, and you understand adaptations, and so these organisms that, if you have data that would show that, I'd like to see it, but if these organisms that are perishing, maybe it's just natural causes that are causing the issues that we see with the organisms that you mentioned, and I didn't quite hear exactly what you said, but maybe it's just natural causes. You're not going to convince me that human activity can cause such a large ecosystem collapse like the one we just mentioned.
Now we'll be taking student speeches. Who would like to speak on the side of the Democrats? Democrats first. And Republicans next. You speak on the side of the Republicans.
Any more opinions? Okay.
Climate change. I'm videotaping.
Okay, since the Republicans spoke last, we'll now start with Democrats with 1 minute.
Mr. Brown said that without the coal, we would lose jobs, homeland would be out of jobs. Building and maintaining the wind farms and the solar powered stuff, that would create jobs. Sure, some coal miners will lose their jobs, and some of them will be able to go back into the energy business because, well, they're not going to be educated. But I remember Mr. Brown saying something about how we need to higher the education of the whole country. Well, those jobs, that requires a high education. You have to get one to be able to maintain them. If not, you can't do so. So basically, it's gonna happen. We're gonna have jobs, we're gonna hire educated people. It's good for the environment and good for us. And yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the Democrats vote, we have 1 minute.
I wouldn't say climate change is a non-existent issue, but like Mr. Brown was saying, China, India, developing countries, they rely on these natural resources. They don't have the capacity to build wind farms or solar panels in the middle of some African desert or in India where there's 1 billion people packed in the slums. They're not able to do that. These countries rely on natural resources, and anything that will actually affect the climate, make it better, as they would say, would require harming these developing countries or countries like India and China. Or like a carbon tax in a world where the world needs more consumer spending to boost economies. A regressive tax on energy does nothing but raise the prices of everything, since oil is used to produce many of the things we do. It's part of the production cycle. I'm not saying climate change is non-existent. I think that's a bad thing to say, but it's really nothing to worry about for a while. And we shouldn't be harming developing countries, because the United States, even if we completely
Time's elapsed, sorry. So now the Democrats 1 minute.
Okay, so NASA has practically confirmed that that CO2 emissions do exist for our vehicles, and it's actually increasing. It's changing our climate. It's heating up our environment at a really radical rate. It's an issue. Also, our wastefulness of humans have created. I don't know about this. The wastefulness of humans have actually created really toxic oceans, and it's very acidic. So this is do you think? I don't know. I don't think that putting us for a better. How do I write this? I apologize. I don't think that making. I don't think that a better lifestyle, an easier lifestyle with cars would actually putting. I don't think that having an easier lifestyle with cars would make.
Time is elapsed. Now we're going to move on to the role of the Supreme Court. It's for the Republicans. Okay, this is for the Republicans. The role of the Supreme Court. President.
I want to congratulate each of the people that have come up here to speak on both sides. It is incredibly difficult to sit here and to look at the law and to try to formulate the law. And so thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here, but also for sharing your ideas.
I agree. Thank you.